politics. We have an election this year. We've got the same two gentlemen who ran last time running again. It's a testament to modern science that he's still able to walk around. This is elder abuse, what they're doing to him. He won the election, but he's not in charge. He doesn't really know what's going on. We have Trump, who frustrates me a little bit because I can't make up my mind on him. Drives the media absolutely insane. I'm a libertarian. Trump is no libertarian. He would have been a Democrat with his policies. Vivek Ramaswamy, music to my ears. Like, stop, I can only like you so much. Calvin Coolidge, who is the greatest president in American history.
Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Thoth the Scribe podcast, where we discuss ancient wisdom, art, modern politics, philosophy, and of course, trajectory in which the world is headed. And I think there is someone who can speak to some of the topics that are of interest to my audience and to you. And for myself, it's Kevin Crater. How are you, Kevin?
Hello, very well. Good to see you, Guy.
It's a pleasure having you on my podcast. You are a self-professed evangelical from the Evangelical Free Church, professional life, the pest control management.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And industrial pest control management and the food supply, and yeah.
And you also have a podcast called The Kevin Crater Show. Yeah, I was on it. I think it was interesting enough for your listeners, and perhaps it will generate a lot of viewership. How are you, firstly?
Good. I'm here in southern Michigan, America, and we've had up and down weather. It'll be 70 degrees one day, Fahrenheit. Sorry, I'm not a Celsius. And then it'll be down well below freezing at night, and so it can't make up its mind. But we're trying very slowly to get into spring, so it's a very good time of the year. So.
Yeah, there are a lot of tensions brewing, for the past year or couple of years. So, tell me a little bit about, we talk about Israel, and now it's your turn to speak to the situation in America before we dive into other topics.
Yes, politics. We have an election this year. We've got the same two gentlemen who ran last time running again, and
not so gentle, but yeah.
Well, yeah. Use the term loosely, with a little bit of grace. But our current President Biden it's a testament to modern science that he's still able to walk around even an hour of the day. The guy needs to be in a home. This is elder abuse, what they're doing to him. He's clearly not in charge, and he's being used for other people to run things. That's how I feel. And a lot of the people in the Obama administration, when he was vice president for Obama, I think a lot of them are still in charge. And I'm not saying he isn't really the president. Like, he is the president. He won the election, but he's not in charge. He doesn't really know what's going on. And then we have Trump, who I go back and forth on Trump so much and so wildly. It frustrates me a little bit because I can't make up my mind on him. In many ways, I like a lot that he does. I like how he drives the media absolutely insane. That's such a fun thing to watch and just strictly entertainment. But I'm a libertarian mostly, and Trump is no libertarian. 30 years ago, he would have been a Democrat with his policies. And so, but he's like the only good option. I loved Vivek Ramaswamy. He wanted to cut the government by 3/4. That's like music to my ears. It's like, stop, I can only like you so much. And when he says things like that, this is reminiscent of Calvin Coolidge, who is the greatest president in American history, I feel, who cut the government, I think, in half, 2 different times. And so Vivek Ramaswamy was my pick. I loved him. He was absolutely wickedly brilliant and quick, and he wanted to cut the government. But here I've got Trump, and like, who else am I going to vote for? I do not feel it is throwing your vote away if you don't vote for one of the two main candidates. I feel you're extremely justified if you don't feel like you can vote for one of them. But I'll end up voting for Trump because I think he's hilarious and he's my best option.
Yeah, I feel that a lot of people in the past even made their vote, based upon popularity. But how were your beliefs actually formed? From where do they spring? They originate?
Yeah. So I guess growing up, I grew up in mostly a Republican environment. My county is mostly Republican. I grew up in Hillsdale, Michigan, which is the home of the famous, some might know, Hillsdale College, which doesn't take money from the federal government, and so they're allowed to do things differently. And so, conservative, definitely. I had a libertarian high school teacher who really taught me a lot of things, just by observing him. He couldn't get too crazy with his libertarian ideas in school, but just by listening to the way he talked about things really changed the way I thought about things. And so, like I said, I'm mostly libertarian. I think there's a little bit of libertarianism that, gets a little crazy, a little far afield, not practical, shall we say. The overall idea is right, but when it meets the real world, it kind of breaks apart in some ways, if that makes sense. So I remember my first real observance of political things was when Bill Clinton in the 90s was involved with Monica Lewinsky. And if you don't know what that is, you can look it up. I'm not going to go into it. But it's when he lied to the entire nation on TV and said he didn't do what they said he did. And it wasn't long after that we found out, oh, well, yeah, he did. And that was the first moment I realized, like, these people just lie, how naive I was, but I was, just out of high school, and like, he just lied to everyone. Like, how could he do that, And come to find out, that's most of what they do. And so that was completely not anything unnormal for them. And so I believe there's probably 3 politicians in America that I would trust to watch my kids, shall we say. And they are few and far between. And that there's just it speaks to a problem to the system more than a problem to the individual, I think.
Yeah, there are problems. Yeah, sorry.
No, you have well-meaning people who get involved in politics, but if you do not have a strong moral foundation and a strong faith and strong convictions, you will quickly get taken over by the machine. And what the machine does is give you power, influence, and money. And you see someone like Nancy Pelosi, who's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. She beats Warren Buffett with her stock picks. How is that possible? Well, they're insider trading, and it's legal for them. It's not legal for me or you. It's legal for them to inside trade. So this is the problem with the system. So.
Yeah, we'll try to parse or break down some of the terms that you talked about. The case with the infamous now case, notorious with President Bill Clinton and his attaché, shall we say, Monica Lewinsky, or kind of you call it intern in America. Yeah. And we won't delve more deeply to that case because I don't care by this point. Yeah. And I think most of America almost doesn't care. He is not that relevant on the
No.
scene today. Could you speak to the influence of religion as a guiding beacon to healthy, normal, stable type of living?
Yeah. As you were saying that, my mind went in about 15 different directions I could take it. So I'll try to rein myself in. But yeah, I am what is considered a Christian. I couldn't find a more base term than that. I believe that Jesus Christ, the Jew who was born 2,000 years ago, is the Savior of the world. And all of the Old Testament leading up to that point was basically looking towards him. And he is who I put my faith in to be saved one day. So that's the base of it. I do find myself, though, in America, surrounded by a lot of people who call themselves Christians, other denominations of Christians. You have Greek Orthodox, not just Greek Orthodox, just Orthodox, and then you have Catholics, and then Protestants are, the big three Christian branches here in America. And within Protestantism, there's innumerable denominations, and I belong to, it's called the Evangelical Free denomination. We're freely associated with other evangelical free churches, which means we do not have a bishop above us or anyone. We have local control, and so we're able to do what we want, as far as our outreach to the community and what we preach and all that. And so believe in the Word of God, the Bible. Is His truth, His message to us, and I believe that He used a group of people called the Jews way back when as priests to the world, and He used them in a lot of ways. But I do believe that Jesus is the fulfillment of the Old Testament, and so that informs so much of my life. I mean, I am nothing without that belief. I am an empty Hulk, a skin suit, if I don't believe that. So that informs so much of what I do. There's a verse in the New Testament, and I think it's Colossians 3:23, I think, that says, whatever you do, do to the glory of God. And so that means my work, how I interact with my neighbors, how I raise my kids, my family. And so you're supposed to give your best at everything you do, as if you're working for God. And there can be no greater master or greater responsibility than to work for God. And so what that means in my country, there are a lot of what I would call cultural Christians. And you see this recently with the atheist Richard Dawkins, who has recently said he considers himself a cultural Christian.
Yeah,
The
God I don't believe is a Christian God. It's not a Jewish or a Muslim God. It's the Christian God I don't believe in. Yeah, I like Richard Dawkins for a lot of his antics and his mantras and his, amazing bright intellect and cultural significance. But he has his significance has waned down in recent years.
Yeah, so you've got people like him who identify, basically, what it is it's wanting the good parts that a Christian society produces without believing. I mean, that's essentially what he's after. He likes to benefit in the society that a moral people produce, but he doesn't want to believe in that. And so there's a lot of that in America, I feel. There's people who go to church every week who I'm not saying my church, there are some, but across the country, quite frankly, across the West, who do they really believe it, or is just going to church something they feel they have to do? And so
it's a cohesive practice that kind of bind a society together.
It is definitely that, and there is a bit about the accountability that comes with that. But just because you go to church every Sunday doesn't mean you believe or have dedicated your life to what you believe.
Yeah, people who get married in churches don't necessarily uphold a Christian or even a monotheistic belief or whatever belief they may hold.
Yeah, definitely. So we see that a lot. There's a lot of people who profess Christianity who you're like, are you really? Because I see what you're doing. And Christ says that they will be known by their fruits. You will know someone by what they do with their life.
Fruit shall you know them. Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
So there's a lot of that in America.
For they are wolves in sheep's clothing. Getting back to pest control, I would imagine that such a task as pest control will obligate a person to actually go and do it manually, as opposed to an autonomous kind of technology or system or machine that will perform it, because it is a very specific task and it can only be performed and executed under certain terms, and a machine doesn't necessarily know if there's a person in the building, or it doesn't know the schedule of a person, if people will be in the house, or are there people who are in the house and you don't know about them and you start spraying, and perhaps you can hurt someone, or even a house pet. So can you speak about the relationship between automation and artificial intelligence in the future of the workforce, if you have any opinions on it?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting to note, just off the top of my head, that AI was the boogeyman going to replace a lot of jobs. And once it started to replace jobs, the jobs it was replacing were white collar. You see a lot of articles written, and you see jobs like mine, which is largely manual labor. Yeah, like you mentioned, you have to go somewhere and do something. During COVID, I was in a state that had a particularly egregious governor. I would say she's an evil person, and she locked down a lot, and I never had a day off. I never had an hour off. I was essential, and so I never did anything different. My life didn't change. And so, yes, you have to go to places and do things. And it is a form of manual labor. It's not back-breaking or arduous, but it is, I get my steps in, shall we say. 10,000 steps a day in 8 hours is nothing for me to do. So there's a lot of, movement with your body. And this is largely something that cannot be put onto any sort of technology at the moment. There are some enhancements that are slowly being added to my industry. I have one account as a commercial building that has a lot of feed for animals in it. And so there are these what we call smart traps, for lack of just a generic word that no one more creative can come up with a better name. It has basically a Bluetooth device in it, and it can sense when a mouse has gone in the trap, either got caught or been fed, or fed on the bait that is in the bait station. And so basically what I do is I have my phone, which is what I use at every stop to scan things and to enter information, and I go in there on my phone, and before I walk in the door, my phone is picking up signals from traps that tell me, yes, you need to check this one, or no, you don't need to check this one. And so it's pretty cool as a technology. It's pretty neat, but I cannot picture it ever being done without a human there to verify it, because there are so many false positives. A trap gets moved and kicked around and it's lost, and I have to hopefully find it, or it breaks and I have to replace it. So we have these technologies that are slowly being integrated, but it's an enhancement to your current level of work. It is not going to replace it. I mean, you would have to have almost an identical Android replacement of me that is as dexterous, is that a word, dexterous, have as much dexterity as I do, has the critical thinking ability, the I guess just personability of a human to go in there and check things out. And because what if a trap is moved 10 inches, or if it's under something and I have to reach under there and grab it. So these are all things that, as a blue-collar worker, at least for the time being, there's going to be no replacement for me. And it is very curious that AI, the big boogeyman, which I think it is something to be concerned about when we give it more control over our lives. But it's curious how the jobs it started replacing first are those white-collar, college education required positions.
Yeah. Do you think that perhaps something like taxes, doing the books, or perhaps even something like a voting booth, do you think AI could kind of control, systematize, categorize, and actually know exactly which action to perform at which time, and actually to execute it perfectly? Or is it a kind of a distant notion into the future that requires more advanced developments?
I think the short answer is yes. Obviously we're not there yet, but the problem you have to consider is, even with an advanced AI, there's still people who made the AI. And even if an AI was made by another AI, there's someone who made the first AI. And you look at this when you have voting machines here in America. They can be tampered with. Someone can go in to them, and I'm not saying this is what happened in the 2020 election, just a disclaimer there, but it's shown that people can go in and change votes on these machines, especially ones that are hooked to the internet. So the people that make the AI, if they don't make it honest and good and fair, then you're not going to have a proper system. I can definitely see in the examples that you cited, AI being an extreme help, an assistive sort of technology that will do some of the grunt work, shall we say. But we're very, very, very far from just handing over the keys to it, But again, you have to keep in mind who made this. What is their incentive? What are their goals with this? You got to have trust in the people who made it, or you can't use it.
Yeah, what do you think of the people who say, well, there's nothing to worry when it comes to AI. It will become an integrative kind of system working alongside humans in a kind of a prosperous and a fruitful relationship that will bear a lot of results and will, ease all the hardships of life, and we will be free. We'll have a lot of recreational time to actually spend on our lives, to give more time to our families, to our personal development, and achievements and dreams. What do you say to these people, or what do you think of that opinion?
I do not think they're right. My short answer. But let me elaborate. people will find time, or shall we say, people will find things to do with their time, and shall I say industrious things to do with their time. I think that AI will, all we're talking about here is, I hate using the term, sometimes we get lost in the word in the woods with AI. Let's just be realistic in what this is. It's another piece of technology. And I am not a Luddite. I do not believe that we should be afraid of technology.
Yeah.
We should use it if it's profitable for us to use, if it can make things better, which is what humans have always done, from the steel plow up until the computer and internet we're using right now. So these things make our life better. I see it. So I guess you have two options. Will it just be a tool that makes our life better, or will it take us over and turn things into the Matrix? I guess those are the two extremes. I don't see how we could go Matrix route unless we ask for it. I believe there's some people would love to go the Matrix route and ask for it. Just make my life easy. All I want to do is sit around and be in a video game in my head all day. There's some people like that, I know, but I believe most people want to be productive and use their mind and their intellect to produce things in the world. This is the calling of God, to go out into the world, be fruitful and multiply, produce things, use this creation that I've given you. And so I think we're going to land on the side of that, where it is a productive tool, and we just have to be smart about it. And I don't who do you trust? Do you trust Elon Musk? Do you trust the other random people that are working on it? I don't know. But like, if what you're being given doesn't sit right with you, and if you cannot use it, then don't. I also picture a possible future, let's say 100 years from now, where people who want to live the AI life, shall we say, segregate themselves to the cities. Mm-hmm. And people who want to live a normal, shall we say, life, where they basically segregate themselves to the...
You see that in a lot of apocalyptic kind of movies. You have the elite, the technocrat, living in a monochromatic urban concrete jungle, and the rest are just, they are spread across, the fields. They live in the muck and the kind of how they the slums. They live in the slums. They live in relative poverty. All the finances and everything is allocated back to the kind of megalopolis, and everyone else is cut out of the system.
Yeah, I don't see that happening though. I don't see it going like those movies. Here's why. So you've got people in the cities who want to just live like that. You've got other people, and who knows what the percentage will be, living out in the country, out just like kind of like where I live, where it's just like I have fields all around me, and I've got some houses, and these big cities are going to be dependent on the people who live out in the country who make the food. Unless they figure out a way to just do it all in the city, and it's all fake, unnutritious junk that they're eating. Even if that's the case, even if they completely are able to segregate themselves and don't need everyone else, the people out of the cities who are not signed into the AI stuff all day are going to be able to live and reproduce and have commerce among themselves. And so I see it splitting. I see a very real possibility of that's what happens in the future, because people will choose what they want. They will choose to go live out in the sticks and live in the woods, like it's kind of my dream, or they will choose to go live in the city. So I see that happening, a very real possibility.
So, as I've mentioned before in our interview, do you think that people should strive to live more Or take the example of kind of ascetic monks living in the wilderness, in the deserts, mountainous areas, or they should completely, cut off technology like the Amish do, or some of the Luddites you mentioned. They have their own manifesto that was actually a great threat to society and modern living, and in strict opposition to the notion of the technocrats and the big conglomerates and the oligarchies that push for a unified kind of communist vision of the future that will, cut off a lot of the populace. I'm not saying it's not a conspiracy theorist, because you won't be able to sustain yourself in that competitive kind of world that, emphasizes only technological growth, change, integration of different disciplines. I think it's preferable for us to completely abandon technology altogether and to go back to kind of Arcadia, nature, the idyllic, naturalistic state, or is there a solution to sort of mitigate between technological progress and our kind of identity as even humans, even anthropological beings, biological,
Gotcha.
carbon life forms?
I see what you're saying. So I am not a fan of completely getting rid of technology. It doesn't make sense, because I grew up around a lot of Amish, and the line where you cut technology off is arbitrary. So where do you cut that line off, or where do you cut technology off? They did it sometime in the 1800s. That's their line. How far back do you go? What if I say, well, I don't use any technology that was in after Christ was born? Am I a better person than they are? That doesn't make sense to me because of its arbitrariness. And so you can't do that. I mean, you could, but it's going to be rough. The problem, the thing to do then, if you can't do that, is to honestly look at technology and pieces of it and figure out what benefits you or what you can use. There's a lot of problems with social media. I'm not the first to say this. Anyone who has it can see the problems. I have 3 kids, 12 and under. They're not at all on social media at all. They don't have their own devices by any stretch of the imagination. And so you have to use things properly. It is proper for me to have a Facebook and social media because I can use it to benefit what I do. I can use it to entertain myself for a little bit if I need to laugh at some funny political memes, or I can use it to contact someone in Israel like you, and we can have good conversations. And so the answer is to use these technologies properly. But when you throw out a technology, oh, here's a smartphone, everyone. It's not for everyone. You have to have an ethical people to make good decisions about whether or not this is good for my family. You have so many people in the world, particularly in the West, who simply are, lack of a better word, heathens, godless heathens, who don't want to have anything to do with God, who have no morals. So why wouldn't you just give your kid the latest and greatest thing because they're crying for it? And then when the kid gets on Instagram or TikTok and they find out that think they're really a boy and not a girl, or they think they want to do something else with their life that is just destructive, you've got no moral position for them, and you've given them this technology, and now they're going down a path you don't want them to go down. So again, you cannot get rid of it. Again, how far back do you go before you've gotten rid of all technology? Even a bow and arrow is a technology. So we have to use these things properly. We have to look at them and consider them for yourself. Is this good for me? Is this good for my family? Is this good for my business? Is this a waste of time? Something I continually look at on my phone, some more successfully than others. Is this a waste of time? So I think the answer is yes, use technology. Technology is a gift from God because it is produced by people doing what God commanded them to do, is to be fruitful and multiply. But you have to have some common sense and use it to benefit yourself, not to hurt yourself.
Yeah. There's always, some people actually think about it, but they always think about it in the context of technology. What is the predestination of humanity? Is the predestination of humanity, as like you said, to simply be fruitful and multiply and frolic in the sun, and to consume water, food, and all the natural material and resources on Earth, and wait for the sun to go nova, or for the next colossal asteroid to pass our stratosphere, or the predestination of humans is to achieve a kind of transcendental meta human state where we are actually able to surpass or to vanquish the notion of death. Do you think we can, or if we will actually pass to the next evolutionary state of humanity, what will be humans' predestination then? They're kind of a serendipity.
I see what you mean. So let's say we do get to a point where we don't die. I guess there's a couple different paths you can go down with that. There's the option of keeping your body alive, and was it the ship of Theseus, I think, who says basically you keep replacing a piece of the ship, how long until it's no longer the original ship. And but what a person is a body and a soul. And I know we differ on our faith a little bit here, but I think you would agree on that, at least somewhat. And so let's say you could download my brain into a computer, and you could do what you want with that file. You could put it in a robot, put it in some sort of AI system that can talk to you in your ear, or even put it into another wet brain of a person. Like, these are real possibilities that might happen someday. I believe that God created us with a body and a soul. And I believe that once you separate the soul from the body, that's not you anymore. When I die, let's say amazingly, and let's say before I die, that option is here. And I'm like, yeah, great, let's do it. Put me into another body when I die and I'll live on. I believe I'm going to be in heaven. And if I can't observe my consciousness, it'll be just a poor copy of me walking around doing things. And it won't be me. It'll just be a copy of me. I don't buy into this idea of, we're going to live forever one day, because that is not biblical. There's nothing in theology or my belief in God and through what I've read about him in the Bible that says that is the end result of man. The end result of man is to be either with God forever or separated God from forever. So I believe that's what's going to happen. And now we might get to a state where we can extend our lives artificially for a while. But eventually, Jesus is coming back, and he'll make all things right. This is what I believe. And so I don't think we're going to get to that point. If that may be a very easy way out of saying, oh, I just don't know. But I don't think we're going to get to that point where that's possible.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying exactly. I also don't believe we could achieve, immortality. Not in the good sense you think of when you think of immortality. The notion of the soul is a very beautiful one, a very ancient one. The existence of the soul, of course, anima, comes from the Greek term anima, a soul. That's the word for animal, because animals, they are living things. So we assume they have souls. But do you have any closing statements, arguments, anything you would like to share? This was a great conversation, and I learned a lot about you and a lot about America, and yeah.
I guess the only thing I would share, and thank you for having me. It's been fun. The only thing I think I want to emphasize is I am a Christian American talking to a Jewish person, and we can have a good conversation, and we don't agree on 100% of things, but we are two reasonable people. And so all of the things that are going on in this world, Russia and Ukraine, Hamas and Israel, these are many times artificial things. And I know it's not artificial when a member of your family is killed or whatever, but most of the times when we have problems in this world, they are because of people above us, government usually, fighting another government. And people like you and me and our families are caught in these strifes that are above us. Yeah.
Caught in the skirmish or in the wake of some conflict that we have no way of understanding. Its significance and its intricacies. Perhaps we'll talk about it. Maybe if you want. This goes hand in hand with the notion of predestination, humanity, the human leadership, and people who govern the world. There are so many different terms just in the Christian church, or a reverend, a bishop, chaplain, or pastor, or whatever, altar. But people who are prime ministers and heads of state, do you think the role of a government itself, the notion of a government, is something that is essential for human existence?
Boy, how much time do you have?
I don't know. Well,
in short, yes. But it's all about scale. So let's go back to, let's go back to Noah when he got off the boat. So he's got his family and his kids. They start doing things, making more of themselves and taking over land and property, and then with Moses, when the Israelites were coming out of Egypt, they were going to Moses with all of their problems. It says, I think it was in Exodus, how they kept all day. Moses had to sit and hear complaints about people. And God finally was like, well, point people among you to, someone over 100, someone over 10, someone over 1,000. And so, like, that's a basic form of government. So there's a book, I think it's by Henry Hazlitt. It's called Democracy, the God That Failed. And basically his argument is that having democracy, or everyone in charge, leads to the current type of world we have. And so I think there's a very good argument, and this is this is going to be interesting coming from an American, but I think there's a very good argument for a monarchy. Let me elaborate. When you have, let's say, a king is in charge over a certain area, and you're like, okay, why is a libertarian talking about a monarchy? But let me get there. The king is in charge of, let's say, 100 square miles or a state, whatever he's in charge of. If this is a moral person, and if his kids who take over after him are moral people, they have incentive to take care of what is under their purview, under their jurisdiction to take care of. If they are not just trying to take advantage and profit off of their people, they have incentive to take care of them and to protect them, because then their kids will do the same, and their kids will do the same. So I can see that argument that government is, shall we say, needed in a way once a people gets to a certain size. Like for a family, it's communist. Like I'm the head of a communist cult here with my family, because we're all in it together, But once you go out, and you go out even more, I do believe that the local control needs to stay as local as possible. Now, a country the size of America, where we have, you've got so we start in townships or cities, and then you go to counties, and then you go to states, and then you go all the way up to the federal level. It's a humongous behemoth because of the size it is. Now, I do believe that if we go back to the Constitution, we follow it and only it, we would be way better off, because I believe that there is a call for a government to protect its people and ensure that contracts among them are adjudicated fairly. Aside from that, there's no reason for government to be doing what it does. I do believe, I will concede, as much as I hate to, that there is some need for some sort of system of governance among a group of people. And that varies greatly, depending on what the group of people is, depending on their culture, depending on their size. Yeah, that's a long answer to your short question.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I'm glad to hear it. Do you think there are amendments to the different different sections of the Constitution? Are the amendments do they have a place, or are they just interfering with the natural original founding basic notion that was, it was rock solid. It was based in the Enlightenment and utilitarian.
So amendments to the Constitution, I believe that those are not necessarily bad. You have, the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, so free speech and the right to bear arms. It is good that those things were codified. They shouldn't need to be, though. These are just activities that a free person can do. But it was good that they thought ahead to write it down, saying that the government can't infringe on these rights. But I believe that the Constitution was a bit of a coup against the states to federalize everything. So before the Constitution, we had the Articles of Confederation, which were basically a loose agreement with the colonies that we would cooperate together. And there were no real rules like there was in the Constitution. So the argument could be made that the Constitution was people who want more government initially, initiating the big government that we have now. And it's easy to look back and see that. Did they know at the time what they were going to make? Probably not. But we were fine under the Articles of Confederation. There were people, though, who thought that we needed to federalize everything, and so this was the first step towards that. And I don't know if that was the best thing. We were fine under the Articles of Confederation, but...
Getting back to the Founding Fathers, their notions were based and grounded in the Enlightenment, utilitarian ideals and beliefs, deistic beliefs and systems of belief, although they were always anchored to, of course, the Christian cultural faith, but they were not strict, Christians. They had a lot of weird notions. It was a different time. The Enlightenment was, the liberation of man from the shackles of monarchy and the church. Church in a broad term. Broad in the brackets, because the church is not just. It's not just a church. It's a synagogue. It's a mosque. Even Buddhist temples. They were all kind of liberated from the chains of monarchy and the faith. So America was not founded as the most devout Christian when it was first established.
No, it wasn't. It's an interesting argument. I mean, I've heard this before. So I've read a good deal about George Washington, and as any good American should, and his writings and things. And this deist argument is basically they believe in God, but they believe that God might not be as intimately involved with our lives as a mainline Christian might now believe. And so, but there's arguments from George Washington's own pen in the Revolutionary War. He said that he saw the intervening of God in several areas during that Revolutionary War. And I mean, these were his own words. And so I don't know what to do with that.
So if you have anything else to add, it was a fascinating conversation, and I think we will get to talk about other topics next time around.
I think so too, yeah. And what I was saying earlier about just me being able to talk to you and how governments are, do the fighting and we're caught in the middle. Just, it's okay to talk with people who you disagree with. I mean, you need to be able to have conversations, and that's one of the reasons I started my podcast, the Kevin Crater Show, and because I wanted to talk to people about things. And I've talked to people I disagree with, and there was one person I talked to who I know we disagree politically, but what we were talking about we both agreed on, and so there's no reason you can't have a conversation with people that you disagree on some things. So I encourage people to, be kind to your neighbor, like Jesus said, love your neighbor as you would yourself.
Yeah, I would second that notion with, the stipulation or the caveat of the prefix, but I second that notion.
All right.
That's a nice parliamentary kind of reference, seconding the motion.
There you go. Now it's official.
Yeah. Every movie that you watch about it, I like to. Most recently, I started watching a lot of the Civil War kind of I watched The Patriot, and I watched that crazy movie with Mel Gibson, the professor and the crazy man, or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Deals also when I watched Napoleon, and it all coincides, all the parliamentary kind of governance system, and it's very the bureaucracy. It's very interesting. Like at first glance, like what is so interesting about government and and regulations and proposals, law proposals. Who cares,
Yeah.
But when you start going into it and you start to see how it can actually affect, it has the trickle down kind of effect, and go to the most simple, but there's I don't want to use that term, but perhaps it's fitting, the plebs or or the proletariat. Yeah. So thank you so much, Kevin Crater. I'm Kevin Crater. Kevin.
That's all right. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's good to talk to you again. Good to see you again.
I'm looking forward to having our second conversation, if you want to, and perhaps that time around we can talk about the role of government, AI, intelligence, and then because there are, technology and AI and the big technocrats, and they are, a lot of people said this before me, but that cadre of people, they are the new priesthood, of the modern world. We can speak to that notion and why it is dangerous in conjunction with megalomaniacal kind of ideals that some of these people espouse. We can talk about that if you want.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun. Yeah, we've got a good basis groundwork between us now. So yeah, we can. Sounds good.
Yeah. It was awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. It was great. I wasn't expecting it to go that smoothly, although at times I had some lapses in memory, but that's fine.
We all do. Yeah.
Okay. So Thank you so much for watching. This has been a great episode with my guest Kevin Crater, and hope to see you on the next one.